needs. And in fact, it contains a lot of additives that can damage the gut wall itself. That's why it's no surprise that we have an epidemic of mental health. So when it comes to your gut health, as I've said, your food choices, how you're chewing your food, how you're digesting optimally your food, all of that will be a factor on how you can maintain a healthy gut. Okay, so we will be discussing all of this today. Okay, so if you have this kind of symptoms, no, or especially if these are chronic symptoms in you, then it's not good to just simply treat them symptomatically. Okay, it's important to understand whether many of these symptoms are an indication that you do have an unhealthy gut. Because if it is, then we need to restore the health of your gut if you really want to avoid developing all of those conditions associated with an unhealthy gut. So if you do have malabsorption or maldigestion, then you will affect the ability of your gut in assimilating and absorbing all the necessary substrates that it needs in order for it to function optimally. So just like your car, if one of those substrates like the water, oil, or battery, if one is missing, it will either malfunction or will not function optimally. The same thing, our body is like that. If you're lacking all the macro and the micronutrients that it needs, then you will not be able to provide the necessary energy for each and every trillions of cells that you have. And then later on, those upstream symptoms will manifest with a specific condition. So like example, if you have anemia as one of your findings, but although it's just seen in your laboratory test, sometimes, especially if you don't have any blood losses happening to you, then that could mean that you do have vitamin B12, iron, or vitamin B9 deficiencies. No? If you're having an edema and they cannot find anything wrong that could explain that edema, then we need to look into your nutrition. Because many of these substrates, if they persist to be deficient in your system, will later on translate and lead to diseases and condition. Okay, so for your gut, the different organs manifest, or you're given a diagnosis of different diseases. Okay, but we need to understand what's causing those diseases. Like if you have heartburn, or why you're having chronic epigastric pain, even though you've underwent a gastroscopy already and they find nothing wrong in your stomach, then why is it that you're having those upstream symptoms or digestive symptoms? Then we need to understand the status of your gut. Okay. For example, for those of you who have been taking, or for some one time in your life, you've been treated for hyperacidity. Okay. When you're manifesting with chronic symptoms of abdominal pain, bloatedness, hyperacidity symptoms, it's not actually the acid that is the problem. It's actually the covering or the layer of your stomach. So, but oftentimes when you're manifesting with hyperacidity symptoms, what they will do is they will give you an acid suppressant medication. But you know that gastric acid, our stomach needs to produce that. No, in fact, we do produce 2 liters of gastric acid every day. No? And our stomach can withstand that as long as the covering layer of your stomach is intact. So when the covering layer of your stomach gets damaged, that is when it can be affected by the production of the acid inside of it. Okay. But as I've said, it's not the acid that is the problem, because those acid play a role in helping you digest the food that you're eating. So if you're going to suppress the acid production of your stomach, then you're going to affect its function. And in fact, for those of you who have been taking acid suppressing medication for quite some time, for the longest time, on a daily basis especially, you will affect the normal production of acid in your stomach, and you may have this condition. We call it hypochloridria. In fact, in elderly patients, it's expected that as we age, especially after the age of 70, the production of hydrochloric acid and other digestive enzymes in our stomach is really reduced. That's why it's difficult for elderly patients to digest protein. That's why you see many elderly patients, they have what we call sarcopenia or low muscle mass. Because even if they're eating protein, if they're not digesting the protein because of the lack of hydrochloric acid and the lack of digestive enzyme that comes with aging, okay, then they will not be able to provide the necessary amino acids for their body to create a lot of muscle mass. Okay, that's why we need to recognize that whether how optimal is your digestion. Because if you keep on taking acid suppressing medication for the symptoms that you are attributing to possibility that you do have hyperacidity, you'll be surprised because those drugs can actually suppress your stomach's ability to normally produce hydrochloric acid. And you might be manifesting with this, what you call hypochlorhydria or low stomach acidity. Okay, because if you have this, the problem is hyperacidity and low stomach acidity manifest the same symptoms. So if because of the chronic intake that you're doing by taking a lot of acid suppressing drugs, it led for you to have low stomach acidity. And every time that you're manifesting with chronic digestive symptoms, you're always thinking that it's possibly because of the hyperacidity, and you're taking more these acid suppressing drugs, then you're causing your condition to worsen. So you need to find out whether your chronic digestive symptoms, is it because of hyperacidity or is it because of low stomach acidity? Because if it's because of hyperacidity, do not suppress the acid. Repair the wall of your stomach. That's the treatment that should be done. So how do I treat that? So then I'll give you aloe vera. Aloe vera, through time, can actually help repair the layer of your stomach. But do not suppress the production of your acid. Because if you keep on suppressing the normal acid production of your stomach by taking those medication, through time, that low stomach acidity condition that you have, okay, can lead for you to develop all of these diseases. Okay, so these are different diseases that can manifest if you have low stomach acidity. Because when you have low stomach acidity, it will be difficult for your stomach to digest and break down the protein that you are eating. And sooner or later, that will lead for you to have protein deficiencies. And those protein deficiencies will lead for you to develop many of these diseases. Okay. If you want to find out, you can actually do this, especially for those of you who've had history of prolonged intake of a lot of acid suppressing drugs like antacids or proton pump inhibitors like Nexium or ranitidine. No? If you keep on taking this medication, you can test whether your stomach, you have been able to affect the ability of your stomach to produce the acid, or you have low stomach acidity by doing this baking soda and water self-test. No? So this is so easy. 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, you get it from your kitchen, mix it with 4 ounces of water, and by tomorrow morning, upon waking up, okay, you can take it first thing in the morning before you eat your breakfast. Then the test, because in the morning, this is where we produce the highest amount of hydrochloric acid in our stomach. So if the hydrochloric acid in your stomach will get mixed with the baking soda, you will produce carbon dioxide. Then you will burp. Within 5 minutes, you will actually supposedly burp, no? Because your stomach will be full of carbon dioxide. But if you don't burp, there is a big possibility that you do have low stomach acidity. No? If you have low stomach acidity, especially from your history, you're the only one who can tell it, no? That you have been given a lot of these acid suppressing drugs, then you can actually restore back the acidity of your stomach again by using food. No? So these are some of the foods Like some people, they get to resolve this just by taking regularly for several months apple cider vinegar. Others, I use gentian root or some bitters, no? Or there are nutraceuticals that I use like betaine in order for us to restore back the acidity of your stomach. So believe it or not, there's nothing wrong for your stomach to produce acid. But if the acid is affecting your stomach, the problem is not the acid. The problem is the damaged wall or layer of your stomach. And that is what we need to address. Okay? So then another thing that can affect your stomach to digest the food that you're eating and will affect your ability for you to absorb those nutrients is when you lack digestive enzymes. So once the food reaches the stomach, okay, your stomach is supposed to release all of these enzymes. The lipase, that is the enzyme that we need in order to break down the fatty foods that you're eating. Proteases is the enzyme that you need to break down all the meat or animal sources of protein that you're eating. Amylase is an enzyme that you're supposed to produce in order to break down all the vegetables and all the fruits that you are eating. So one way for you to produce maximally all of these enzymes is how you chew your food. So if you're not chewing your food properly and you are a fast eater, you're not able to stimulate your stomach to produce these enzymes. That's why when you're manifesting with symptoms like 30 minutes or an hour after you eat, you feel bloated, you feel early satiety, you feel heavy, that means to say you're not able to break down those food that you've eaten. Or you have all of these symptoms, as I mentioned, gassiness, bloatedness, stomach pain, or when you're seeing steatorrhea is when you look at your stool, okay, because your stool is the best indicator to know that you have a healthy gut. So you can look at your stool. A healthy gut will show a stool that will be very solid, no? And shaped like an S, like a snake when you look at it in the toilet bowl. So that is that is a healthy gut. Okay. But if your stool is showing undigested food particles, especially when there's a lot of oil there, then you do have an unhealthy gut. You possibly have what you call fat malabsorption. Then we need to investigate how healthy or how unhealthy your gut is. Or sometimes when you do have what you call resistant weight gain, no matter how much you eat, you're not gaining muscle mass, you remain to be underweight, then that is the possibility that you're not able to assimilate the nutrients from the food that you're eating. So you do have what we call maldigestion and malabsorption. So these are some of the symptoms. No? I won't go through it, but if you're having any of this, if what I'm describing here in this slide represents you, then it's good for you to understand and know how healthy is your gut. Okay? Because later on, if you just keep on treating these symptoms by taking antacids, by taking something for to release the gas, all these things, or by taking something to stop your diarrhea, sooner or later, you'll be surprised, a lot of diseases can develop in you. Okay? So you don't have to wait for these diseases to be formally diagnosed in you by the doctor because by the time, it might be too late already. But if you have any of these symptoms, then we need to investigate how healthy or how unhealthy your gut is. So these are the things that can contribute why you're going to have difficulty producing all of these enzymes, the one that I mentioned a while ago. Okay. Of course, as I mentioned, the mental, emotional, and psychological aspect of our life is not disconnected to the physical health. That's why you see people who are chronically stressed, they're the ones who are manifesting with chronic digestive symptoms. Okay? So how do if you think that you have enzyme deficiency, lalo na for those who are manifesting with lactose intolerance, or when you're eating certain foods, That is when you develop all of this bloatedness and gassiness. Like if you're eating apples, you're eating a specific fruits that contain fructose and sucrose, you're not able to digest it, then possibly you have a lot of digestive enzyme deficiencies. Okay, so how do you support that? Well, as I've said, begins with how you chew the food. No? How you chew the food, and at the same time, well, sometimes we may need to give you some support already, especially if you've gone through a procedure called gallbladder surgery. Okay, if you have gallbladder surgery, obviously your digestion will really be affected. Okay, so uh, so now if you think that you have some digestive enzyme deficiencies, especially if you're manifesting all of those symptoms, well, these are some of the foods that I use. Most of them are spices. Maybe you can find them in your kitchen, and that can help you digest the food that you're eating. So to produce amylase, that is to help you digest fruits and vegetables, then you could utilize ginger and curcumin. You can add it to your food or you can drink it as a tea, depends on you. Curcumin can also help you produce a lot of lipase in order for you to digest the fatty foods that you're eating. Or coriander and onions will help you digest some of the simple complex carbohydrates that you're eating. If you're having bloatedness after you've eaten a specific fruit or vegetables, possibly you have disaccharidase enzyme deficiencies. And these are some of those spices and herbs or plant-based foods that you can use in order to help you stimulate the production of enzymes. Okay? And of course, one thing to check, at times you have maldigestion symptoms. Well, it's because of the kind of food that you're eating. So if you're not eating whole, real, unprocessed foods, then don't be surprised because sometimes those foods will not really be recognized by your gut immune system. Okay, so you eat living foods, no? So when I say living foods, these are the ones that God created for us to consume, not the ones that man created, the ones that you're buying in the groceries that are in a package with a lot of labels. I'm not talking about those kinds of foods. I'm talking about foods that are whole, real, and unprocessed. So, in fact, some foods can really not just help you stimulate the production of enzyme, they actually contain enzymes like bromelain and papaya, which can provide you papain, and bromelain, which comes from pineapple. That's why if you're going to eat your steak, make sure that after you eat your steak, follow it up with eating few pieces of pineapples because it will help you produce some of the proteases or digestive enzymes that can help you digest your protein properly. Okay, so I mentioned this a while ago. I said for those of you whose gallbladder has been removed already because you have been diagnosed to have gallstone, okay, do you know that the cause of gallstone is simply just not chewing your food properly? Because when you're chewing your food properly, we're supposed to chew our food properly at least 30 times. Okay, try chewing when you're eating white rice. Chew it 30 times before you swallow it. Before you swallow it and you're chewing it 30 times, you realize it tastes like sugar already. You know why? Because you broke it down into its smallest substrates already. No? So, but if you're not chewing your food, because by chewing your food properly, you will stimulate your gallbladder to release the bile into your stomach. Every meal, we should be able to make the gallbladder contract. Okay, because if the gallbladder will not release the bile that is stored there, and since there is a continuous production of the bile coming from your liver, you will make your bile stored in the gallbladder to be concentrated. Once they're concentrated, the chance for them to form stones gets higher. Okay, that's why those gallstones, they're not formed in an overnight fashion. They've been there for quite some time already. I don't know what is the exact data of how much gallbladder stone incidence and prevalence in the country, but I'm pretty sure that is also comparable to the United States data. Okay, what is the purpose of the bile? The bile helps you digest the fats that you are consuming, helps you once that fat, what you consume, it will break it down and helps us to be able to utilize in order for us to generate, remove the cholesterol there. So if you're not able to provide these bile salts, then especially when you remove your gallbladder already, then you need to be given some support, or else every time you eat fatty foods and proteins, you will not be able to to digest properly those macronutrients. And bile is also very important for removal of waste. Okay, so if you're not able to provide this anymore to you because you have removed your gallbladder, then we need to provide support, or else, especially if you are manifesting with any of these symptoms. If you have all of this, you're queasy after a fatty meal, no, you have constant feeling of fullness, that is a sign that we may need to provide you with some support of bile salts, or what we call cholagogues or choleretics. Okay, this can come in supplements, but you can also get it from food. No? So there are certain foods that can serve as a cholagogues, like coffee. That's why when you feel heavy after a meal, so it feels good, right? When you're drinking coffee or you're drinking some of this tea in the form of tea, like the dandelion tea, because it's helping in your optimal digestion. Okay, so these are some of the foods that can support you, especially for those people who no longer have a gallbladder because it has been removed already. Okay, so, or some of you may be manifesting with motility disorders. Anyone here who have been diagnosed with GERD or gastroesophageal reflux disease, or someone here who have been diabetic for so many decades, you might manifest with what they call gastroparesis, meaning to say the motility of your stomach is not as motile anymore, because remember, diabetes damages the nerve innervation, even the nerve innervation that makes our stomach move. So if you're having this, then instead of just simply taking symptomatic treatment for addressing the motility issues that you have, you can actually use many of these natural substances or food that can help you, okay, make your stomach be more mobile, especially if you're having constipation, you have reflux, you have heartburn. These are some of the things that you can utilize. No? Ginger root, okay, tryptophan is an amino acid that comes from protein. Magnesium, no, a lot of us may be magnesium deficient, or even vitamin C can help in the motility of your stomach. So, or sometimes I do use a lot of integrative interventions like acupuncture, or even some traditional Chinese medicine can help us improve the motility of your stomach. Simply, not just simply treating the symptoms, but, or if you want to treat it symptomatically, I would prefer using, as I've said, many of these natural substances. Okay, so another thing that can help in improving the motility of your stomach is with the food that you're eating there. So probiotic rich foods like fermented foods, or there are some natural colonic laxatives like, of course, aloe vera. These are easily accessible, or you can actually, some of them can easily be planted. No? So psyllium husk, flax seeds, cod liver oil, and of course several fruits and vegetables, especially those that are very high in fibers. All of this can help in the motility of your stomach. But it's also important to understand whether there might be some chronic diseases that you have that could be contributing to why the motility or movement of your stomach and intestines is affected. Then we need to address that as well, especially if you are the ones who have a lot of medications. If you're taking a lot of medications, you have polypharmacy, then we might need to understand how is that contributing to why you are manifesting with a problem in the motility of your stomach. Okay, so that's all about digestion. So let's now go inside your intestines. Okay, so as I mentioned a while ago, our body, we have a lot of microorganisms there. We call them the microbiome. Many of them are made up of bacteria, And surprise, 10% of the microbiome actually is made up of viruses. Okay, so there are viruses that are good, there are bacteria that are good, there are viruses that are bad, and there are bacteria that are bad. Okay, the key here is how balanced is your microbiome, especially the balance between good and bad microorganism. So this is, most scientists right now are really studying this, the human microbiome. In 2001, we finished the Human Genome Project. No, they thought that it's going to make a big difference in medicine, but they now realize that your genetics is not enough, but we have this microbiome. Most scientists right now are having a study of this, no, and its impact in our health. So we're now inside your small intestines. So those hot dog-like shaped thing there are actually microorganisms. The gold and yellow surface is actually the wall of your small intestines. Okay, so so the more diverse, the more rich this microbiome. No, I actually compare the microbiome to the ocean. No, so remember, in the ocean you have the coral reefs, right? So remember the one I showed a while ago, the finger-like projections, the microvilli. That's like the coral reefs. So just like the ocean, when the coral reefs are healthy, wouldn't you find a lot of different species of fish there? No, the healthier the ocean, the healthier the coral reefs. No, so that's why our gut microbiome is also like an ecological system. In fact, it's one of the most unique ecosystem. Okay, so inside our gut, inside our small intestines are microorganism. But you also have microorganism in the 30% of your immune system, which is distributed in your nose, in your mouth, in your vaginal tract, and on our skin. But a big chunk of the microorganism are residing inside our intestines. Okay, so in fact, it measures about 5 pounds, as I mentioned, or almost 5 pounds. Okay, so how do we form this microbiome? We form this during the first 2 years of our life. That's why it matters a lot. What is the what is the mode of delivery of the child? Is it because of cesarean section? Is it through vaginal delivery? There's a big difference of the child that was born via cesarean section versus normal delivery. In fact, in Stanford Hospital in the US, all scheduled cesarean deliveries, 24 hours before the cesarean delivery, they will insert a sterile gauze in the vaginal tract of that pregnant patient. And once the baby is delivered the following day, that gauze will be wiped to the face of the child, so that that child will be able to get the microbiome of the mother. Because they noticed that when a child was delivered via cesarean section, the microbiome, the starting microbiome of the child is coming from the nurses and the doctors, from the skin of the nurses and the doctors. So it's not able to provide a good balance of the good and the bad microorganism. There's also a big difference between the child who was born breastfed versus bottle fed. No? That's why our Department of Health is really advocating for breastfeeding. Because this microbiome, for the first 2 years of our life, is very unstable. It keeps on changing. That's why there's a big difference if a child will be given an antibiotics during the first year of his life. So you will eradicate the microbiome. But because after 2 years and 2.5 years, the composition of the microbiome becomes very stable. This is now what you're going to inherit as an adult. So depending on the diversity, richness, and thickness of your microbiome, that is what will make a difference on how this microbiome will be able to protect your gut wall. Remember, your gut wall is the one that protecting your 70% of your immune system. So that's why we are born 99% human, but we die 90% microbial. So how are you changing your microbiome composition? Because that is what will impact on our health. Scientists, they studied people who are living the tribes, like they studied the tribes in Papua New Guinea. Those people there who are residing in the mountainous area of Papua New Guinea, they're wondering how those people are able to eat raw animals, raw meats, without cooking them. That's why they were labeled as cannibals. Even children are able to eat raw meats. When the scientists studied the microbiome composition of these people, the diversity of the different microorganism is numbering to so much, because there's about 1,000 microorganism, identity of microorganism. And they compared the microbiome of those people to the microbiome of a modern person eating modern nutrition. The diversity is not comparable. Really, the microbiome of a person who's consuming modern foods is only, the diversity is only numbering to about 30 to 40 different kinds of species, as compared to those people, the Hadza tribe in Papua New Guinea. They're numbering to about 100 to almost 200 different microorganisms. That's why they're able to tolerate eating and eating even a raw meats. No? So a child who was born cesarean section, they're seeing this already. The incidence prevalence of all of these conditions is more prevalent or more evident. Okay, because that is what the scientists right now are studying, the value of the human microbiome. What are this microorganism means to us? Right now, they've been able to identify only a fraction of those microorganisms. And they're trying to identify the composition and the mixture, no? Because each of our microbiome for every individual is actually unique. There's no comparison. So, in fact, this is now the current, this is just new. I just attended a few days ago, and I've learned about how they're studying the microbiome, how it is contributing to development of certain cancers, okay, in the Sidney Kimmel Cancer Centers in the US. And at the same time, how the microbiome causes cancer, and at the same time, how they're able to utilize it to treat certain cancers. Because remember, the composition of your microbiome will be dependent on all of this. Your food, the drugs that you're taking, the frequency of the so many antibiotics that you've taken, all of that will affect the composition, diversity, richness, and thickness of your microbiome. And through time, diseases and conditions that you will develop. But in the meantime, they've also documented the different roles that these bacteria are playing as far as our health is concerned. As you can see there, they play so many roles, no? Most especially to our immune system. It is responsible for developing and training of the immune system. Okay. In fact, this is the reason why is it we're saying that this virus is really highly infectious, but why is this virus not equally fatal to everyone? That is dependent on the gut immune system of that individual. If you notice, there's really saying that there are really identified vulnerable individuals that this virus will manifest significantly. But if your gut immune system is able to defend and protect you against this virus, you will be those people that who are either carriers but asymptomatic, or those people who after a few days of cough and colds and fever, they immediately recover from the infection of the COVID-19. So that is the key here. How healthy or how vulnerable, how resilient, or how optimal is your immune system, particularly the 70% of your gut immune system. Because if your gut immune system is damaged or the gut wall is damaged, that is what will make a difference. Because remember, even the 2/3 of your neurotransmitters is produced in this gut wall. Okay, it's produced in this gut wall. That's why if your gut wall is damaged, you may also affect your circadian rhythm. That's why a lot of people are having problems with their sleep. And the more compromised is your sleep, the more that you will also further damage your gut wall. Okay, so it's not true that elderly people should survive just by sleeping 5 hours. That is not true. Okay, the reason why you're unable to sustain your sleep is because you're unable to produce melatonin, especially if you're not able to provide the protein or the amino acids to produce it, because you're not digesting your protein properly as we grow old. That's why we need to make sure that your gut and your digestion is optimal. Okay, so because if your gut immune system is going to be continuously damaged, then you make your immune system vulnerable. You will be vulnerable against any um, highly infectious viruses. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, so that's digestion, that's assimilation, and that's what's happening inside your gut. No, we have microorganism there, the microbiome. Then the last way for you to assess your gut is look at your poo. So what does your poo tells you? Because as I mentioned, um, if you do have a healthy gut, no, you can actually Google it. No, it's called Bristol stool chart. No, I don't have a picture of it, but you can Google this Bristol stool chart. Okay, there are 5 kinds of poo. No, sorry for those who are eating. But if you are your poo is within category 4 and category 5, that is a healthy stool. Okay, but if it's not, especially if it's category 1 and category 2, then you may need to assess your gut. Okay, so even the timing, no, on the transit time on when you're able to have the bowel movement, the regularity, not just the character of your stool, speaks a lot on how healthy is your gut. Okay, so that's the average transit time, 40 hours, no, 33 hours for men, 47 hours. But the optimal really is if you're having bowel movement every day. Okay, if it's too short, like if you're the type of individual that after eating, after 2 hours, you have to go to the restroom immediately, that's not going to be good, because it will affect your ability to absorb all the nutrients from the food that you're eating. You're having malabsorption problem. But if you're retaining the stool more than 24 hours is your transit time, that's also giving an opportunity for you to reabsorb all the waste that your gut is already trying to remove. That's also not going to be good, because that's going to affect your entire system as well. How do you measure your transit time? You can do this. No? You can either use a charcoal tablet, or you can use, the beets, no? A large beet, 1 or 2 beet, and see how long it takes until you see the first until you first see the color in your stool. If it's black or red, then count from the time that you took the charcoal tablets or you took the large beet. And then if it's within the 24 hours or 33 hours, then you have an optimal transit time. That's going to be a good thing. Okay? So there, the more we understand about the gut, the better we understand about our health. That's one core principle of my practice. Remember, I am no longer a doctor of disease. No, I label myself as the go-to doctor for health, because I don't manage your diseases. What I manage really is your health. Okay, so please mind your gut. Okay, thank you. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it.
I had a question, doctor.
Yes, ma'am.
And this was I think your presentation answered it, because I know that I eat a balanced diet. I drink a lot of water, but I am frequently constipated.
Ma'am, there is what you call functional constipation. Remember, I said in my presentation, 2/3 of the neurotransmitters is produced in the gut. One of the predominantly neurotransmitter that is produced in the gut is what we call serotonin. Serotonin is the brain chemical that is used by our brain to regulate our moods, our appetite, and our sleep. But it is not only the brain that uses that. The gut the large intestines uses that in order to make your intestines move. It's called peristalsis. So to make your large intestines move so that you have a regular bowel movement, you need serotonin. So remember, the brain and the gut are the same. So the wall of the small intestines are made up of cells called neurons. Our brain also has a cell called neurons, and they use and share the same neurotransmitters. The problem is 95% of the serotonin that is used by your brain, 95% of it is produced in the gut. Okay. So if you have functional constipation, it's worth looking into why do you have serotonin deficiencies.
There's a question from Tagum. Do you recommend Yakult?
Well, there's a lot of probiotic boosting foods. Yakult only contains, lactobacillus. There's about 30 species of lactobacillus. As I've said, this microorganism are so many. The problem with Yakult is that it contains a lot of sugar. There was a study done on that because it's not only about consuming probiotics. If you're taking in probiotics, whether through the food that you're eating or from supplementations, you need to make sure that those probiotics are surviving your stomach acidity and is able to enter your small intestines, because that is where they're important. Because remember, your microbiome is they need to be rich. You need to make them grow and increase in number. So if they're not able to survive the stomach acidity, then it's useless. No? And they did study Yakult, no? Plus other similar drink of how, when you're drinking that on a daily basis, how many of them are able to reach the small intestines. The result did not show a favorable level that is enough for the probiotics to make your microbiome, to re-inoculate your microbiome. So I would prefer probiotic boosting foods. There's a lot of them. If you could, let me share another presentation. Okay. For sources of probiotic boosting foods here. So fermented foods is the best source. Here are the sources. So of course, there. So fermented foods. These are the science behind those foods, no? And then kefir. If you know how to make kefir, that's also going to be good. Kefir. And then these are the different fermented foods from different continents of the world. No? So we have there. There's some local there. You see there, nata de coco and burong manga. No? Those are, of course, kimchi is the most common. I think achara is also a fermented foods. No? So those are probiotic and prebiotic boosting foods. So you can make your own. As I've said, you can make your kitchen as your own pharmacy. Pharmacy. No? Pharmacy. Make your kitchen. Because remember, your health is not going to happen in your doctor's clinic. It's going to happen in your kitchen. No? So all of these things are benefit of fermented foods, not just for probiotics, but even honey for its antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial effect. Okay, so there are several. Okay, so kimchi, honey. These are different sources of how you can re-inoculate your microbiome. Okay, so, but it's okay if you want to drink Yakult, but that has a lot of sugar, which is going to kill your microbiome. No? If you look at the label, there's a lot of sugar there.
Doctor, there's a question on sleep.
Yes,
How
okay.
much sleep? How much sleep do we need?
For adults, even if you are senior citizen, you still need 7 to 8 hours. Okay. The reason why your sleep is shortening as you grow old, we have to accept that as we grow old also, the production of our hormones declines. Okay, but the decline of the production of hormone is dependent on the person. To some, the decline is faster. But even if you have a low melatonin level, you can still support that. You can still support the production of that again through eating foods. No, there are foods like bananas. No, or if you really have a low level of melatonin, then you can support. There are a lot of melatonin supplementations that you can utilize. Now, Sleepasil is actually, ma'am, is actually a melatonin. No, but you have to remember po, our sleep, there are actually 3 neurotransmitters that are responsible why we are getting therapeutic sleep. No, it's not just melatonin. You also, this is also affected by adenosine. This is the one that is affected by too much coffee. Okay, and then another neurochemistry or neurotransmitters or neurochemical that is important in regulating our sleep is actually cortisol. So cortisol is the one that is affected by chronic stress. Okay, adenosine is the one affected by substances like caffeine. Okay, that's why we encourage you, do not drink your coffee beyond 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because that will compete with your melatonin later on late at night, and it will affect your ability to sleep. Your melatonin is the one that provides us the urge to be sleepy. No, you normally peak the release of this melatonin at around 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. So the key about this 3 neurochemistry is the synergy of it, the synergy. So that's why when I'm dealing with people who are having problems with their sleep, I try to study their circadian pattern. Okay, because our body, ma'am, our body, our body knows that it is nighttime, and our body knows that it is daytime. So we have a biological clock. There's a portion in your brain, we call it the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That is our master clock. That's the one telling our body, hey, it's daytime, you have to wake up now. And then when there is sunset, hey, it's nighttime. So there are changes happening in our body during daytime to support our function. There are changes that are happening in nighttime to support the function at night. So if you're eating late at night, that's a problem. Your stomach is resting by 9 p.m. If you're eating late at night and you're consuming a lot of simple sugars, your pancreas is asleep by 8 p.m. So if you're eating a lot of sugars at night, that will never be utilized as a source of energy. So what will the body do? Since I cannot bring it inside the cell to convert it into energy, that glucose, then I'll convert that into something else. I can convert that into glycogen through the liver, and that glycogen can now store it as fats in your liver or in your body. Okay? So you cannot change. Our biological design is hardwired to our ecological design, because that's how God created it. No, we only have one creator. So you cannot change it. So if you alter the biological system of your body, you look at those, if you have relatives who are working night shifts or shift workers, like those call center people, look at them. They're all obese, right? Because they altered the physiology of the human body. No, because they have to eat late at night, because their daytime is our nighttime, and they're eating. But the problem is, the body at night was not designed to digest food and metabolize food. That's why the body is just storing it. Okay, so there is that's the body clock. Okay, that's why we have an increasing incidence and prevalence of obesity. And when obesity happens, that's when a lot of chronic diseases is now going to happen to that person. Okay, so
There's a question: is taking Sleepasil advisable?
depends. As I've said, if you do have melatonin deficiency, that will work. But if you don't have melatonin deficiency and you're actually consuming melatonin, it will alter the balance of your hormones. Because melatonin is a hormone, okay? You have to remember, all hormones, the way they function to our body, they're like a musical orchestra. They're not functioning independent of each other. They're like a musical orchestra. They're different hormones, but they need to be in rhythm and in sync. No? So that's why they can produce a beautiful music or symphony. So if one hormone is too much, it will alter the balance of the other hormones. So then you're not going to produce beautiful music. You might produce some conditions. That's why I said our body is a system. That's why it needs balance. Okay. So if you don't need it, because that will work if you do have melatonin deficiency. That's why I hear some people, doc, that doesn't work for me. It doesn't work because the reason why you're not able to sleep is not because you have melatonin deficiency, but because there is an alteration of the balance of your melatonin against your adenosine and against your cortisol. Then we need to understand what's happening to your system before we can provide an intervention to correct your circadian pattern of sleep.
A question on diet, doctor.
Okay.
If you want to lose weight, what's the best way to lose weight?
When you use the word diet, that means to say you are removing one macronutrient, which is fats, proteins, and carbs. I don't provide or I don't recommend diet. No, everything is needed by the system: fats, proteins, and carbs. Okay. When it comes to your weight, do not look at your weight only as a number. Okay, your weight, your body weight, actually has a composition. Okay, you have what you call body composition. So that weight represents muscle mass, fat mass, water balance, and also the fat mass is important to look at it as far as where is it distributed. So because when you have majority of your fat is concentrated in the central area, we call it central obesity. Even if your weight is normal, but you have a very high deposit of fats at your belly, that is still an unhealthy weight. Okay? So, and you have to remember, our body po, the law of thermodynamics, this is where previously, this is an old school teaching, no? Law of thermodynamics. This is, they say, calories in equals calories out. No, that's not true. The law of thermodynamics can only be applied to machines, but that cannot be applied to our human body. Because our human body is an adaptive biologic system. You go on a crash diet or on a starvation diet, you will lose weight for a time, but your body through time will create a response against it. Hence, you restore back again the weight that you've lost. Okay, because the body is an adaptive biologic system. So when a person has resistant weight loss, meaning to say whatever she does, whatever she do, she's not eating anymore, she's exercising regularly, but still she has resistant weight loss. We need to understand what's causing that. Is it because of a hormone imbalances? Is it because of nutrient deficiencies? Is it because of toxin accumulation? There's so many root causes why a person, or is it because of your microbiome composition? You know, scientists are studying this microorganism. They realize that some of these microorganisms are very efficient in metabolizing food and converting them to energy. That's why you hear of some people, they just smell the food, they gain weight immediately because it depends on their microbiome composition. There are identified microorganisms that are more efficient in metabolizing the food and converting them into energy. Okay, but there are some that are inefficient. So it depends. We have to investigate what is causing your weight gain or what is causing why you're having difficulty losing the fat. So we need to investigate how efficient is your fatty acid metabolism. How efficient is your glucose or sugar metabolism? That is how I deal with weight loss. I don't recommend diet. When in my practice, what I provide are food plans or nutrition intervention, but I don't eliminate one over the other. I determine what is the appropriate food plan for my patient. Okay.
What about that intermittent fasting?
Oh yes, that's very therapeutic. That's biblical. No? So when you're undergoing fasting, what does your body do? Your body actually provides, can create what we call, one, it can cause you to have ketosis. So ketosis is wherein you are forcing your body to utilize fat as a source of energy. So if you have a lot of fat deposits there and you're undergoing prolonged fasting, it's like your body feeding itself because you're forcing it to utilize the fat deposits because you're not providing the source of the macronutrient sources of fats, carbs, and proteins because you're on a fasting. You're allowing your body to feed itself. So it will enhance your ketosis or your fatty acid oxidation. Another benefit of fasting, of therapeutic fasting, if it's done properly and supervised medically, is that it will help your body and provide what you call mitochondrial biogenesis. So mitochondrial biogenesis is your body is creating new batch of mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, that's like a battery of your car, or that's like the battery of your car. So your car, even if it's full tank, if it doesn't have a battery, it will not run, right? This is the same thing. The mitochondria, all the food that you're eating, once that is properly digested by the gut and assimilated and able to enter your cells, it will go to the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, and they are all going to be converted into energy. As we grow old, these mitochondria are dying as well. Okay, but if you're able to generate newer mitochondria, this is the key to longevity and vitality. That's why, yes, I do use fasting as part of my regimen, but I investigate first the appropriateness. There's a lot of kinds of fasting, different kinds of fasting, depends on what your system can tolerate and what your system can, what your system needs. No? So depende. So it has to be a medically supervised therapeutic fasting. Okay. So
I think there's a question, Marisa Tantoco. You have your hand raised, Maris.
No, I put it in. Yeah, I was just, that was before he brought up the stuff about the fermented food, because I have always felt that producing my own fermented food, you know, like I make my own yogurt, I make my own kimchi, because I think that it's growing living microorganisms, and it has been really good for me. I was just going to make that comment.
that's good, ma'am. I mean, continue that. No, that will really help in the reinoculation of your microbiome.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
No more questions, po.
Thank you very much.
Was so helpful. Thank you very much. We learned a
Thank
lot.
you.
We learned a lot, doctor.
Thank you, po. Yes.
Thank you very much. So informative.
Very
Thank you also.
informative. For young
Want
and
to
old.
hear it
For young
again.
and old. We have to hear it again.
I want
Exactly.
to hear it again.
Sure, po. So you learn how to use food as medicine.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Exactly.
So that's my campaign KKK. Kusina ang kalinga ng inyong kalusugan. No? Kasi
Oh, that,
your, because your health will not happen in your doctor's clinic po. It's gonna happen in your house, in your kitchen. No? So make your kitchen as your own pharmacy. Pharmacy, not Pharmacy po. No? So if only we can teach Filipinos, we have so many lands or areas to plant, no? But right now, children or especially people who are living in urban areas, they're foods, no? I still belong to the generation wherein I remember when we were kid, wala pang fast food nun. Pagkainan na, you have to go, lahat kayo, you have to go inside, you eat as a family, and you will not stand up on the table unless you finish your vegetables, no? So, but now, I mean, some children, the only vegetables they know are French fries. So yeah, it's so different. That's why we're getting sicker and sicker po. The problem is our situation around the world is that we are being fed by a food industry that does not pay attention to our health, and we are being treated by a health industry that does not pay attention to our food. Now, look at our hospitals po. Look at those hospitals. Go to the food court of those hospitals. You'll see fast food. You see processed foods being sold inside the hospital. So that's why we're getting sicker and sicker. Kaya nga po, even if we have the biggest hospital in Asia, no? So one time in Davao, diba, we have the biggest hospital. But what is the true sign of a healthy nation? The true sign of a healthy nation is not having the biggest hospital. The true sign of a healthy nation is when its people, its citizens, are all living and thriving and not having the need to be admitted to one. So that's what is the true sign of a healthy nation.
I think Lisa
Yeah,
Viola.
hi, Doc. I have a question because I have a family that doesn't like to eat vegetables, starting from my husband to my son. Okay, and what do you think about those vegetables in a capsule? Are they, do you, or any other creative ways of introducing vegetables to my family?
You could have, ma'am, those are phytonutrients. Those are capsules that they formulated, they extracted the bioactive compounds from the plant-based sources. We call them phytochemicals, and then combine them. So that will be able to provide you the therapeutic benefit, especially, for example, for cruciferous vegetables, no? So, which has proven benefit to have an anti-cancer effect. Now, what I teach my patients, well, you can try smoothies for your children, no? Smoothies, wherein you combine both vegetables and fruits. You can also try.
Sorry,
ma'am.
I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, again. We can try smoothies wherein you combine both vegetables and fruits, and they taste good. No, you can even add some nuts there to add in the protein. You can even add some healing oils there, like olive oil, coconut oil, those things. So there's a lot of recipes that you can find that can that the taste is so good. No, they will like it. No, my culinary medicine chef partner, he can create raw soups, no, from vegetables, raw soups. No, so then that raw soup you add in a little bit of oil again. It's already a complete meal, right? Or broth. No, so broth wherein you utilize good sources of amino acids or protein, and then you add in, there's a lot of people right now who are selling vegetable powder proteins or pea proteins. You mix them with that. No? So there's so many creative ways. I have a patient who was able to create popsicles from spices and herbs and botanicals. No? So, and then he uses honey in order to make it taste good. But the bioactive compounds of those spices and herbs is the flavoring for those popsicles, and that's what she gives to her children. So there's so many creative ways. As I've said, you can make your kitchen as your laboratory and as your pharmacy. But of course, if you want to be healthy, you really have to find time in it. No? So we do not outsource our nutrition to the food industry because that's a problem, as I've said. We are being fed by a food industry that does not pay attention to our health, and we are being treated by a health industry that does not pay attention to our food. In fact, I have many patients who are cancer patients, and their oncologist is telling them, eat whatever you want to eat. No? So they're being told to eat those processed foods and all these things. That's why in the church where I go to, there's a ministry there wherein it's a ministry for cancer survivors. I teach them not just to become a cancer survivor, but to become a thriving cancer survivor. Because can you imagine, they survive cancer, but they have diabetes, they have heart disease, they have polypharmacy, they're taking so many drugs. So, so what kind of a life is that? I mean, because chemotherapy and surgery and radiation therapy is the most efficient way to eradicate cancer cells from your body. But it's your healthy body and your healthy immune system that is going to monitor and track and prevent that cancer from regrowing. Because drugs cannot do that. Only your healthy body. Ma'am, we have the highest mortality. This is sad. Among Asian countries, we have the highest mortality among breast cancer patients. They try to find out, when they try to find out the reason, when they studied breast cancer survivors compared to Japan, Korea, Vietnam, how many Filipinas changed their lifestyle after their diagnosis? 9%. Everyone continued with their toxic lifestyle. Nutrition, did not lose weight, continue with their cigarette, with their stressful lifestyle. Only 9% after the diagnosis of cancer, became an awakening for them to change their lifestyle. Everyone was just dependent. That's why what's happening after 5 years of the oral chemotherapy, here comes the recurrence of the cancer, either on the left side or another form of cancer developed in them. Okay, so we have the highest. That's the fact. That's the sad reality. Among Asian countries, we have the highest mortality among breast cancer patients. So,
What do you tell cancer survivors? What is your suggestion to them? Recommendation?
ma'am, when I manage cancer patients, I see two kinds of cancer patients in my practice. Some cancer patients will come to me. In fact, many of them are referred by oncologists. They're oncologists. They'll come to me, Doc, I'm going to go through chemo. I'm going to go through radiation and surgery. But I need help with my nutrition, with my sleep, with my stress. No? And that's where I manage the health of the cancer patients. I don't manage their cancer because I'm not the expert in cancer. So if they have, like for example, if they have breast cancer and they're estrogen receptor positive breast cancer patients and they are obese, then we focus on making them lose the fat because those fats are deposits of estrogen that will drive their cancer to grow again. So that's what I do po. I do an integrative management of the health of a cancer patients. Right now, I'm managing one. She's going through chemotherapy. But when you go through chemotherapy po, it's gonna deplete your body of all the nutrients because most of those chemotherapy drugs are drug muggers. No, they will deplete. So if you're going to start your chemo and to begin with, you're nutrient depleted. That's why so many people die from the chemo, not from the breast cancer. Because if the oncologist is not knowledgeable about the nutrient status of that patient, and they will subject that patient to chemotherapy, and that chemo will deplete the different minerals, vitamins that are important for the immune system of that person. That person, during the chemo, will develop an infection and they don't survive that infection because their immune system is so weak. So that's why there's a big percentage of cancer patients that die after the first year of their diagnosis. Not because of the cancer, but because of the complications of the treatment. So some patients of mine naman, when they come to me, they'll tell me, Doc, over my dead body, I don't want to go through chemotherapy. I just want natural. Okay? So in that case, I provide a different support. This is where I use a lot of phytochemical foods. No? We call them immunosuppressive foods like mushrooms or cruciferous vegetables, there are a lot of studies supporting these phytonutrients to have an anti-cancer effect. And also, I put them on food plans that will not feed their cancer, because majority of the cancers that are affecting us, they drive their energy, they get their energy from sugars, no, from carbohydrates. So I put them on a well-planned ketogenic diet, no, or what we call mitochondrial food plan. Because if you're not going to feed the cancer, it's not gonna spread, right? It's not gonna grow, it's not gonna spread. If it doesn't spread or grow, it will not cause complications. So I don't claim to cure the cancer, because there's still no cure to cancer as of today. No cure there. But if you stop feeding the cancer, you can achieve local control of that cancer, no matter how spread that cancer is. If the cancer in the breast already spread in the lungs, if that cancer in the lungs will not continue to grow and will not continue to affect the surrounding areas of the lungs, you can achieve control, then that person can still live a long and normal quality life. You know? So that's what I do for.
Thank you.
Okay.
May I ask pa?
Okay. Doctor, you can take another question from
Yes,
Lisa.
yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay, I mean, being realistic, people like to eat corned beef, steaks. I mean, are you saying no to that already?
No,
Or
no.
I mean,
You
hot
can-
dogs.
I
you know?
love steak, ma'am. I love steak. No, but of course, the thing about our meat sources right now, that's the reality, po. Many of these animal sources are not being fed grass. They're being fed hormones and steroids. That's what's causing the problem. I'm not saying that I don't advocate vegetarianism or veganism. I advocate a balanced nutrition. But of course, I respect my patients. If they want to really maintain themselves on a plant-based diet, that's fine. I just make sure that the certain micronutrients and macronutrients that they can only get from animal sources is supplemented through the plant-based sources that they're eating. But when it comes to animal sources, two things. The key is the source, the safety of the source, and second, are you damaging the protein? Because there are good sources of protein, but there are damaged sources of protein. Because if you damage the protein, you expose it to high temperature, that's not going to give you the benefit that it's supposed to give. It's actually going to cause more oxidation in your system. So, but I eat, ma'am, I eat a lot of protein. No, I love steak, but I just select where I get my sources. Okay. As I've said, every macronutrient is important. Fats, proteins, carbs are all needed by the system of your body. Just like your car needs oil, water, and battery, without one of them, the system will not function optimally. So you'll be surprised. I mean, I don't starve my patient. As I've said, I even give them recipes. No, a healthy food can also be a healthful foods can also be a tasty foods. So we have this thinking that's what the food industry is trying to brainwash us. Healthy foods is not delicious, no? But actually it is. That's why I have a partner culinary medicine chef. No, so he's the one making all the recipes for my patients. But the ingredients that he's using in designing his recipes is based on what I think is needed by that particular patient.
Because of what you said, can I ask you then, are you saying that like chickens, they say that lots of the chickens that are big are because they're injected with a lot of hormones?
Yes.
Are you agreeing with that? So we have to be careful as to the sources of our chicken. Do we
Yes.
buy native? Do we buy, and as well as
Magnolia.
organically grown vegetables or organically meats? Are you saying that
Free
organic is
range
better
chickens.
or free range and all that?
It's
more expensive.
That's what we buy. You know, I mean, like I get scared when the chicken is so big. No, you know, because that's the demand. If you've seen the movie Food Incorporated, if you've seen that, no, it's in Netflix. Food Incorporated. After that, you're not gonna buy chicken anymore from the food industry, because depending on what's the demand of the food of the fast food industry, that's where they inject the steroids. So you've seen that Food Incorporated, the chicken are now raised differently. They are housed in a dark environment, no? And many of them are cannot even able to stand because they're injected with something to make their chest big, because that's
Dolly
the demand of
Parton.
the industry. Yes, no. So for vegetables, you can go to the Environmental Working Group website. No, every year they publish list of vegetables and fruits that are labeled as dirty dozen and clean 15. If the vegetable and the fruit is in the dirty dozen, please try as you can, excuse me, to get organic sources of it. But if it's in the clean 15, it's okay. You don't have to buy organic sources. Although in our country, let's face it, there's no such thing as really a regulation of organic here. Oftentimes, you really have to rely on
Resource.
your connection on your source, no? Or better yet, plant your own. No? So there are fruits and vegetables that can easily be planted. If you have a garden or a big area there, you can make your, especially herbs and spices. It's so easy to plant. No? You can create your own so that you'll know it's safe. No? But as I've said, um, uh, that's the problem there. The source is the key. You know, they add one of the things. Not only steroids are they injecting here, they're also injecting antibiotics on these animals. No, 85% of the prescription of antibiotics around the world is not given to humans. It's given to the animals. You know why? Because animals have microbiome also. They have microbiome. When they alter the balance of the microbiome of those animals will become inflamed. When they are inflamed, they're big. The bigger they are, the more profit for the food industry. So that's a problem. So for chicken, well, as much as I can find, I really find native sources of chicken. Okay na pong matigas yun. If you know how to cook ng tama yung native chicken, you can make it soft pa rin. And of course, it's not as chunky and as thick as the one that you're buying in the grocery, but at least that's really safer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Doc,
much, Doctor. I think
Miss Mel,
yes.
I think, Doc, can you take one more question?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I'm a lupus patient and I take too much maintenance medicine. I gained weight because I always feel hungry after taking my meds, especially with the steroid. What advice can you give me in losing weight?
Ma'am, you're not gonna lose weight until you are on a steroids, because that is the effect of that. I do a different approach on all of my autoimmune diseases. No, I don't use immunosuppressant, or I wean them off from the immunosuppressant drugs that they're taking, especially for steroids, because you're not supposed to suppress your immune system. You're just supposed to regulate them. So I don't use drugs in managing my autoimmune disease patient. What I do is I provide them with a lot of phytoimmune modulator foods. No? So a lot, because drugs can suppress your immune system, but drugs cannot modulate it. But food, they can modulate it, because you're not supposed to suppress your immune system. You still need it, ma'am. It's your defender. So, and at the same time with the steroids, no, steroids is one of the common side effect of that is that it will alter, no, your microbiome. And when you alter your microbiome, you will also alter your hormone balance. And when your hormone balance is favoring more of the cortisol production, well, that's the reason why you have a weight gain or fat gain. So that's going to be very difficult. So what I do with my autoimmune disease patients, if they want to achieve the not the weight loss, but what is important, ma'am, is the fat loss. No, because as I've said a while ago, your weight has a composition. Your muscle mass, your fat mass, your water balance, these are all important. Why do you gain also weight with your steroids? Because your steroids will also make you retain water. So you're retaining water. No? Your steroids will also impact on your insulin sensitivity. So when you have insulin resistance, if you are consuming carbohydrates, you're not going to convert those carbohydrates into energy. Instead, they're going to be converted into fat. Okay, so what I do in my autoimmune disease patients, I wean them off No, I've reversed several autoimmune diseases, not just lupus, because whatever is the diagnosis or whatever is the name of the autoimmune disease, the fact of the matter is we need to understand 70% of your immune system is in your gut. No? And that is where we focused on. So a healthy immune system is not only important to be strong. A healthy immune system should have internal regulation. A healthy immune system should have tolerance, and a healthy immune system should have the ability to repair and restore your body. People with autoimmune disease are people whose immune system have lost its internal regulation and its tolerance ability. So that is what we need to restore back in you in order to reverse your autoimmune disease. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you po.
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, doctor.
Thank you.
You're welcome po. Sige. Nice meeting all of you po. Thank you for the opportunity. Andiyan ba si Miss Rina?
No,
Rina,
I
thanks
think
again.
I-
And nice meeting all of you po.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Oyie.
Thank
Okay.
you, Doc.
Salamat po.
Thank you,
Thank
Melly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very informative. Thank you.
Yes, very informative.
Very helpful.
You're welcome po.
We will
Salamat
all
po.
lose weight now.
Please
Only
stay and stay healthy po. No?
lose
Thank
fat.
you very much,
We will
Doctor.
lose fat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay po. Bye-bye po.
Thank you, Doctor.
Good,
Thank
doctor.
you.
Thank you, everyone. So for those who are interested to have a one-on-one consultation with Doc Oyie, so as you can see, there's our details. Just message us anytime and we will be glad to assist you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
for
Gab. We'll
joining.
post that on our Facebook, on our Fiber groups.
Okay. Sige po.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Melly,
you.
I was able to
Bye.
to listen. Hello, Melly. I was
Yes,
able to listen to some, no, but not all. So I would like to have the
Yeah,
recorded,
yes. Gab was able to record.
Kasi
Yes.
it's kind of very interesting, no?
Yes.
And I'd like maybe to see him after the pandemic because I'm diabetic. I'll ask for
We do online consultation naman po, so you don't have to leave your house. So most of them, about 99%, 99% of our patients right now are all in online
Online
consultation.
consult.
okay, maybe I'll do that. Okay,
we'll
thank
post
you.
the number.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay, thank you.
everyone.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Let's
Thank you,
again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Melly. Bye-bye.
Bye. Next week, we'll see you again. We have another talk, remember.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.